Hello, I'm Ian Stafford, and with me is Lewis Moody, the former Leicester Tigers, England and Lions star, and a man who captained his country on the way to winning 71 international caps. We'll be here throughout the Six Nations tournament, providing, hopefully, some expert opinion for BetSafe. Okay, well, let's get into the three matches this weekend, the first weekend of the Six Nations. It all begins at Murrayfield, Scotland versus Ireland. Ireland, I think many people see to be England's most likely strongest challenges, but they've got to forget about England because Scotland, particularly at Murrayfield, that's going to be very very testing for them.
Yeah, Scotland always at home. They're the most frustrating nation in the world. I mean, really, they shouldn't be able to achieve as they do. They've got two professional teams. The pool of players is absolutely tiny. So for them to still be able to compete at the highest level during the Six Nations, during World Cups, is testament to what they're achieving over there. But at home, they are a real animal, and Ireland know that. You know, two Celtic nations going head to head there. I think the Scots raise their game far more when they play England, but they'll still be desperate to get a win in that first game with all the quality of performances and all the talk that's been around them recently, and you know, so many of their players having played together so often for Glasgow now probably going to start in that
Who are going
Scottish
really
side
well as well.
incredibly well. I mean, I was at Welford Road last weekend and I watched my old team, you know, 42-3. It was an absolute disaster, but you know, horrific to commentate on as an old.
43-0. You make it.
43-0. You're right. I mean,
they'd
it was.
rather get nil, wouldn't they?
I would never say that about my old side. But it really was disappointing to see, you know, the drop off. But you know, the Glasgow side that turned up that day were just on fire. The confidence that they had, you know, not taking the points at Welford Road, which is historically a tough place to go and play, kicking for the corner, shows that they know they can score, and not only from, you know, pushover tries from inside their own 22. I mean, they were getting over the gain line in that match and many others with consummate ease. So yeah, it's quite exciting, but only exciting for Scotland if they can actually get a win in that first game.
If they win that first game, I mean, for once they're going to go into the Six Nations with maybe not thinking they're going to win the tournament, but serious aspirations of being top half at least.
Yeah, I mean, I see no reason why they can't make it to that top two. It's just the unsticking, I think, for them will be England at home. They have a mental block against England at home. All the games I played against them over the years. England at Twickenham, yeah. When you played them at Murrayfield, you always knew it was going to be close, and it was actually going to be tough to win. But playing them at Twickenham, and we're talking 30, 40 points difference. I mean, that's changed slightly now, but still, they have a mental block about winning at Twickenham.
Still, Ireland, this is the team that beat New Zealand, South Africa and Australia last year. New Zealand was a fantastic win, as you know, the world champions. Their provinces, particularly Munster and Leinster and Connaught, going very, very well in Europe as well. Yeah. They're a top team, aren't they?
They are, and you know, I think a lot of people wouldn't have predicted Ireland doing so well with the loss of so many of their senior players. You know, the O'Driscolls and the like. It's testament to the coaching and, you know, the succession planning that they've put in place to see those young guys coming through that have now taken on from the older statesmen, and to see Ireland winning those matches and having a clean sweep during the autumn for the first time in goodness knows how many years is quite remarkable. So I think they'll definitely push England the furthest. You know, if we can say, from my point of view, I'd definitely say England going as favourites. You know, that record, equal record win run that they're on at the minute, they could break going into that first match. But Ireland will test England, and I think they go to Scotland with real confidence that they're going to come away with some points. But you know, it's not going to be easy for them up there.
Okay, well, the BetSafe odds are Scotland are 2-1. The draw is 21-1, and Ireland are 11-5 on favourites. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe 2-1 on Scotland. Probably a little bit favourable, but yeah, I think reasonable odds.
Tough game though. Should be a great game, and hugely important for either side to win. It's going to sort of lay out the rest of the tournament for them.
Well, I think it's hugely important for any team that play a game for them to win, going into the Six Nations.
Yeah.
But the first game of any Six Nations, I think your point is that if you don't win that first match...
Which you knew, by the way.
Yeah. I just wanted to make you look a little bit silly.
Okay.
It's not hard. It was that first game, is if you don't win that first game, there's, so many hurdles to overcome. And the Grand Slam's out the window straight away. To win the Six Nations becomes much harder. Confidence is slightly eaten away at. So those first matches in the Six Nations are absolutely crucial for a team developing confidence and whether we see them go on and win a Six Nations title.
Okay, next up, Le Crunch, England versus France.
Yes.
At Twickenham. On the face of it, you think England are heavy favourites. France, again, nobody quite knows what's going to happen. Suggestions, perhaps, in the autumn that the old French, the physical pack, the flare backs beginning to rear their heads again. But very hard to see anything else but an English victory.
I would have to agree with you on that one, Staffs. I think England, just from all the continuity they've developed over the last couple of months and year and whatever it is now under Eddie Jones, I think they'll go into that match, really hungry to take a win, and a significant win. I don't think it will be a close game. I think the first half maybe France will try and ruffle England's feathers, but now with the PC nature that the game's starting to take on, the French aren't able to resort to their old tactics of roughing people up a bit. So you really will see England be able to do what they do best, as long as they can get some quick ball, get the backs over the gain line nice and early with their big forward runners, and then allow them to play that expansive style that they want. I think you'll probably see them kick early on, put France under pressure in their own half, and try and make France make mistakes. But I don't see anything else other than an English win and a convincing one, really.
England have the dream scenario now. They have injuries. They've got a lot of injuries, yet the strength and depth is so good. They've lost the whole back row, haven't they, for the French game? And yet the guys coming in should slot in seamlessly. Yeah,
Rob Shaw was a big loss. Written off by Eddie Jones prior to his tenure as England coach.
As was Tom Wood.
Morgan, I think, is probably the only one that hasn't been resurrected since Jones came back in. But actually probably been playing some of his best rugby as well since being ousted. So that is disappointing. But from my point of view, you'll probably see a position change that I've wanted for a long time. Maro Itoje most likely coming in that sixth position. For me, he has all the attributes of a great six or a great back rower. There's no doubt he's been a quality second row, but I think he could be a world-class number six. And just the way he motivates guys on the pitch, not just by the way that he plays, the physicality that he brings, the speed, the power, but the smile and the enthusiasm that he has when someone does something well, and his teammates, he's picking them up, he's tapping them on the arse. It's a wonder to see, and that's why he'd be my outside bet for that Lions captain, just because he's a motivator of men. But yeah, a number of changes in the back row. It'll be interesting to see if we see Hughes slot in at 8. Haskell will probably come in that 7 shirt, now having recovered from his concussion.
I think maybe Wood. I mean, we don't know what the team is, but Haskell's had no time. Maybe he's on the bench and Wood would start.
Yeah,
for this game.
Yeah, maybe. I'd like to see Haskell start. I think Wood is a good solid player, but I think Haskell, certainly he's been missing a bit of game time, and he'll be really frustrated after he lasted 15 seconds of his return match. And
he was like you, wasn't he?
Yeah, getting knocked out by Freddie Burns.
Collapsed.
Yeah, Freddie Burns, that enormous human being. But yeah, it was, that would be frustrating for him. But I'd like to see Haskell start. I just think he's more of a presence on the pitch. He offers more in terms of the breakdown, ball carrying. Tom Wood's very steady, but doesn't offer enough for me on the international stage. I think you'll probably see one of those two obviously start and be on the bench. Haskell would be my preferred choice to start.
Just a quick point about the French, and I know I'm speaking to a former England player, but in terms of the tournament, as a rugby fan, wouldn't it be good to see the French back, at least a little bit more back than they have been for so long? Don't we slightly miss the French? You may have a different view, having played against them for so many years.
Yeah.
But the Six Nations could do with the French back, couldn't they?
Well, I think the Six Nations wants every team performing well. And actually this year, the French, maybe for the first time, or certainly over the last 2 decades, 15 years maybe, they have been the dominant force, along with the Welsh, in the Six Nations. The number of titles and Grand Slams that both the French and the Welsh have won during that time has been significantly more than any other team. And their sort of fall at the moment has has been a little bit disappointing, but I think maybe echoes, football in many ways in the Premiership because of the number of foreign players that now proliferate the French league. Is you don't see the best of the French playing week in, week out, and it's tough. It's difficult for them to pick their best side. They're flitting between coaches all the time and players. The loss of De Sautoir as captain and leader, I think was big for them. But it would be good to see them back and contesting the silverware. And I don't doubt that they will be, because their drop off over the last 2 seasons certainly has been significant.
Well, the BetSafe odds are England, as befitting what you've just said, 6-1 on to win. A draw is 28-1, and France in a 2-horse race is 4-1. So England are going to win by how much?
I'm going to stick my head on the block and say by 20. I really think,
20?
I really think in the second half they will just finish the French off. It'll be tough. First 20 minutes will be hard. The French will come out with all the blood and thunder. England will absorb that. I think they've got a good solid defensive structure now. Paul Gustard doing a great job as coach, and I think we'll see through George Ford a real attacking presence. I predicted some interesting scorelines during the autumn, and actually a lot of them came to fruition. So right? I don't like to blow my own trumpet, but
there's always a first.
I think England by 15-20 is a good bet.
Okay, and finally Sunday, Italy versus Wales. We'll talk about Italy in a moment. Wales, they came second last year, but nobody's going to remember them really for coming second. I felt as if they've just slightly dropped off the levels that they were at 3, 4, 5 years ago. Everybody's looking at England. Everybody's looking at Ireland. Wales have got Ireland and England at home. So, yes, they've got to get past Italy first, but we shouldn't rule out Wales, should we, in terms of the Six Nations? But it's got to start well in Rome. Yeah, no,
Wales probably come into this as an underdog. Gatland's thinking about the Lions and everything else going on. You've got Rob Howley and Jenkins in there now, manning the ship. A change of captaincy. Warburton, did he step down? Was he pushed out? Hearsay.
Good replacement though.
Yeah, Alan Wynne-Jones. I think maybe a lot of people would have thought he would have got the job in the first place. But Sam's done a stellar stint as captain. Wanted at the end of last year to concentrate on his own form, so stepped down as captain, which maybe didn't do himself any favours. He knew he was under pressure with Tipperick coming through, Faletau. You've got a lot of young, exciting back rowers coming through over there. So he just wants to focus on his job. But Wales, I think, coming as underdogs. Some of those, elder players now, Jamie Roberts, back to the bench, something that I'm sure he probably won't be happy with. But as a team man, he'll be desperate for those boys to that have come in to go well. Jonathan Davis, some old heads in young bodies actually still in that side. Priestland, Halfpenny. Actually, Priestland's not in the squad this year, I don't think, is he? Williams, young Williams comes in. Owen Williams from Leicester, which is interesting to see how he'll be used. So there's a lot of changes going on. So probably a reason they come into the Six Nations as an underdog. But against Italy, actually a tricky one, because Italy buoyed by confidence over their first win against South Africa, playing at home. Wales not as confident, although they had a good autumn. New captain, few changes to personnel, injury. That's a tough game to call. It's a tough game to call. I'd like to think Wales would take it at least by 10. But if Italy get their gander up early doors, then I see no reason why they couldn't cling on to a narrow victory either.
So having made the point that it'd be great for the Six Nations to have the French back, it would also be nice to see Italy be a little bit more competitive. They've had their moments, but they tend to be 6th or at best 5th. Now somebody's got to be 6th, somebody's got to be 5th. But they've been in the tournament for a while now, haven't they? They need to step up.
Yeah, they do. I think the culture in Italy around the rugby is still very much related to having a good time, enjoying a glass of wine, a nice meal, and all those sorts of things. Certainly when you speak to any of the players that go over there and the coaches, it's a very different mindset. The Premiership and international rugby is a very professional game now. I think in Italy they're still developing their professional game, even though they've been in the Six Nations for 20 odd years. So one thing that I'd like to see, and this is slightly off-piste, is the introduction of that second tier Six Nations. So all of a sudden,
me too.
all of a sudden those teams at the bottom that are consistently at the bottom, and over the years it's been Scotland and Italy, are suddenly really having to push to make strides, because if they don't, there's a really hungry group of tier 2, 3 nations underneath that want to come up and start impressing.
And in the World Cup in 2015, the likes of particularly Georgia, but also Romania, really sort of showed what they could do.
Yeah, absolutely. And even Portugal as a nation, certainly as sevens nations, now really developing the game. Spain developing the game through sevens, and that's now starting to creep into their 15 side as well. But Georgia, I think, lead the way really through those smaller nations, and would be the ones crying out for a spot in the top level of the Six Nations.
I agree. So the odds for Italy-Wales, Italy 15-4, a draw 28-1, and Wales, not surprisingly, 5-1 on. And you say Wales by 10.
Yeah, I think if they get it right, then they'll probably go through. But Italy are no walkover anymore. As long as they can get their heads in the game at home, they've got a partisan crowd. The Azzurri, they'll be singing and dancing. Hopefully the weather will be nice. We'll see a bit of expansive rugby played. But Wales, I think under Alan Wynne-Jones, a pragmatic, tough, straight-talking captain, will go about his job to do nothing other than get a win. And if that's by 2 points, 3 points, it doesn't matter. But I think 10 to 12 point margin for Wales victory would be the right call.
Okay, well, you heard it here first. England, Ireland and Wales to win the first 3 games in the Six Nations. We will return next week, where hopefully we'll be talking about a great first weekend of international action and looking ahead to week 2 of the Six Nations. I, for one, can't wait. Not to see you again, but to see the games.
You enjoy talking to me, Staff. That journey this morning at 4 was a delight, wasn't it? To be picked up, singing and dancing at the airport, train station. What a delight for you.
You don't fly to Bath yet.
Well, I thought a man of your wealth would be.
Okay, I'm losing the will to live. See you next week.
Cheers.
There you go. Okay, well, that's just about it for this week. Lewis and I will be back next week for the second round of BetSafe previews for the Six Nations. Should be a great weekend of action. Looking forward very much to seeing you again, Lewis.
I'd like to say the same, Staff.
Just say it. Just say it.
Picking you up at 8:30 from the train station again, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm really sorry about that.
Actually, I think it might have to be 6 next week.
You had to get up at 8 to pick me up at 8:30. I got up at 4 to come here. Sorry to inconvenience you.
Stop complaining. You're lucky I let you in.
Should be a great weekend of action, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.